Hello, everybody. It's Tuesday night. It's 7 o'clock, and we are live. Hello, everybody. It's Tuesday night. It's 7 o'clock, and we are live. Welcome to V-Talks. I'm your host, Veronica Brockwell. Well, I am so excited because we have a new expert to add to our panel, and I can't wait for you to meet her. Her name is Dr. Mia Holland, and she is a psychology professor, a child development textbook author, a TEDx Talks presenter, and a recognized commentator in the field of eating disorders. She's also an invited speaker for Harvard Medical University School and on the topic of eating disorders. And it's really just a perfect combination for our show. We're going to be able to touch upon so many topics, help so many people. And tonight, we're actually going to talk about how to become a body image warrior, digesting societal influences. So I cannot wait for you to meet her. Please welcome to the V-Talks, Dr. Mia Holland.
Hello, Veronica. Hello, everybody, V-Talks audience. I can't believe I'm here. This is very exciting.
You know what? There are no accidents. I am so happy to have you here. And there was just like a mouthful of things to say here. So I would really prefer if you talk about a little bit about yourself, just to bring our audience up to speed on your career and expertise.
Sure. So in addition to what Veronica said, I have been a geek pretty much my whole entire life, which is the basic summary of what she said. My professional career started in 1990 in the field of psychology, and I've worked with lots of different populations in many different settings. This particular topic, eating disorders and body image, is both professionally interesting to me, but also personally interesting to me. So I am probably like a good majority of the folks that will be listening or watching today. I'm a normal person who gets bombarded with information from our environment on a daily basis, and I've got to process it and still feel good about myself. So we're going to talk about how to do that tonight.
I know it's an epidemic, isn't it?
It certainly is. It certainly is. It's very difficult to feel good about yourself when you're bombarded with so many messages and images throughout every day of your life that say you're not good enough, you don't look right, there's different things about you that aren't right. So we'll talk about that tonight.
And two, we've obviously been dealing with this our whole lives, and you and I have spoken at great length about what we've gone through in our lives. Of course, when we were younger, we didn't have social media, but we had magazines and we had television. And, I remember a magazine, I think it was called 16 Magazine, Cosmopolitan. And I believe the 16 Magazine actually had the models in there, and then they would literally have their size in there, all their sizes. And I remember as a young girl taking a tape measure and measuring my body, trying to compare it to the 5'11" model and thinking, oh my God, I'm only 5'5" and my measurements are the same. I need to go on a diet. So now we have social media, and these images are coming at us all day long. And not only that, they're filters on everything. Nobody's even real. What do we do?
It's entirely true. It's entirely true. There's lots of statistics out there that I'll share tonight about social media and all of the things that we are exposed to on a daily basis. And it has sort of evolved over time. While there's some great positive things about social media and the things that we can follow, there's a lot of negative out there. So tonight we're going to talk about some of that, how to decipher between positive and negative. So I'm going to share a lot of interesting and eye-opening, I'm not going to say negative, but eye-opening information about eating disorders and body image. But our goal really is to put our battle armor on and fight the negative messages that we see on a daily basis. So the overall message tonight, even though I'll be sharing some sort of disturbing information, the overall message will be positive, I promise. So hang in there, everybody.
All right. Well, let's get to it.
Okay. So I thought we could start off with a very brief overview of 3 of the most common eating disorders, just to give folks a context of what we'll be talking about.
Okay.
So we'll be talking about anorexia, bulimia, and binge eating disorder. Again, those are the 3 most common. There are others, but we'll be saving those for future V-Talks.
All right.
Lots to talk about in the future.
Okay. So the first one we're going to talk about is anorexia. So Mia, what exactly is anorexia?
So anorexia is really defined as a disorder that's characterized by a distorted body image, severe fear of being overweight, and an unwillingness to maintain a normal or healthy weight, extreme starvation, and sometimes or oftentimes even over-exercising.
Okay. And when do you see these types of symptoms develop? At what age do you see it most often?
Believe it or not, elementary school.
Really?
Kids are watching adults.
Okay.
Yes.
And so why do you think this happens at such a young age?
I think for 2 reasons at this point. One, kids are watching adults. We are the first experience they see in our homes, in the television watching, in the social media that they're exposed to. They are seeing images of people that look different, right? They're already focused on older people because they want to grow up and be older. Little girls are trying to put makeup on. Little boys are trying to act like they're action figures. They're always trying to be older. So they're looking to the older generations as examples. What can we look like? What can we sound like? So the mom who runs around the house, and I know we've all been guilty of saying bad things about ourselves out loud.
Yeah.
The mom that runs around and says, I look fat in this outfit. Children are listening. Little girls are listening.
So what usually starts this? So what do you see first, usually from a girl in elementary school, for example? What would you notice first?
Typically it's comments, it's looking in the mirror. You can tell that they're not so happy with certain body parts. They'll say things about their body parts, or they'll say things about other people's body parts. So what's interesting to me is that when little children, and we see videos of this, and people that have children see this in person, we see children loving each other. We see children running toward each other, hugging each other, not noticing differences in terms of body size, body shape, color of skin. And then at some point, socialization happens, and then they start to see differences. And that's part of the process of growing up. Obviously, we're developmentally, moldable, if you will, until we get to an age where we start to hear and see things that are different from what we know. When you're a tiny little person, you don't know anything. Everything's beautiful. And then as you get older, you're exposed to judgments and other people's thoughts and perceptions. And that's when you start to build your own. And we'll talk about that.
And then, so with anorexia, if it starts at a very young age, how does the disease, is it a disease? Would you call it that?
It is a disease.
Okay.
Yes. So all 3 of these are diseases. And after we actually talk about the definition of all 3, we can talk about the spectrum of behaviors related to eating disorders. So there's a spectrum of minimally harmful behaviors to severe and very harmful behaviors. And that's your clinical disorders on that end.
Okay. So do you want to pop on to the next one then?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Bulimia.
So bulimia is our next one.
Mm.
And this one is defined also as a disorder that involves distorted body image. That'll be important when we talk a little bit later.
Okay.
It includes an obsessive desire to lose weight, and it includes bouts of extreme overeating followed by self induced vomiting, purging, laxative use, and fasting. So this one is a little more unattractive in terms of symptoms when you start to
Yeah.
describe them to people. You
Yeah.
kind of cringe when you hear about it.
Exactly. And then you have another one here, the binge eating disorder, or BED.
Yes, yes. So binge eating disorder is characterized by recurrent episodes of eating large quantities of food, often very quickly and to the point of physical discomfort. And there is a feeling of loss of control during the binge. There is an experience of shame and distress and guilt.
Mhm.
But unlike bulimia, after a binge, there is no purging activity, no vomiting, no laxative use. So there is a distinct difference between those two.
Okay. All right. So we have these three diseases.
Yes, they are
All right.
clinical disorders. Yeah. And so the spectrum, as I mentioned a couple of moments ago, so if we think of a spectrum of eating behaviors,
Okay.
on the minimal end, the less harmful end, there's things like I'll skip a meal once in a while, or maybe I'll run 20 miles this week instead of 15.
Mhm.
Or maybe I'll just overindulge. I'll go to dinner and I'll have three appetizers, my whole entree, and a whole dessert, and maybe a few bites of somebody else's dessert. Those are minimally harmful behaviors.
Mhm.
Whereas if you move over to the very severe end of the spectrum, now we're looking at the clinically diagnosable eating disorders where all of those kinds of behaviors are happening all of the time and are impairing function, whether it's everyday function, social functioning, work functioning, overall emotional health. Those are more severe and again, clinically diagnosable and typically require very significant treatment.
Yeah. Um, we talked a little bit earlier. Both of us have some experiences with these diseases. And I don't know if now is a good time for me to
Sure.
talk about my story, because
Sure.
I feel like if I can share my story and it helps someone, um, I'm more than happy to do it. I've been pretty transparent on the show about different things that have occurred in my life, and I had a situation when I was in high school. As I had said earlier, I was measuring myself and trying to be the size of the models in the magazines, right?
Hmm.
And I remember I was a little, I was just average weight. I mean, I developed at a very young age, so I had a figure, and
Hmm.
a lot of the other girls my age had not yet, and they were very, very thin, you know. And I was insecure about that. And I remember there was a young lady that over the summer that I went to school with, she came back to school and she was super skinny all of a sudden. She had lost a ton of weight and people were talking about it. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. How did she do that? And of course, word got around that she was making herself throw up. And
Mm.
I don't know if that was true or not, but that was what was going around school. And a couple of us started doing that. Unfortunately, I took it a little farther than I should have. And I had bulimia. And I probably had bulimia for 4 years of my life. And back then, we didn't have there what it wasn't even a I don't even think it was really a word, back then.
Mhm.
I don't think so. We knew about anorexia, but we didn't know about bulimia. And I struggled with it for a long time. And then my parents found out about it and started monitoring me. Literally would make me sit at the table for 20 minutes and sit there and make sure I digested
Sure.
my food. And
Mhm.
so I started finding different ways that they didn't know how to eliminate. And then they kept finding out So I was like, well, if I can't do this anymore, I'm just going to start running. So I just would run and run and run and run and run. And then I was like, wow, I think I'm not going to eat so much now. And I think at my lowest weight, I was 104 pounds at 5'5". So, you know, that's pretty tiny. And I
Yeah.
was 104 for many years. Even when I met my husband, I was that small. So think about, if anyone that knows me, I weigh 130. So imagine me at 104.
Mm-hmm.
That's small.
That's a
And
big difference.
yeah. And it took a long time for me to get a handle on it. And I did. And I'm very healthy right now, but I still have issues with food. I still feel like when I eat something, I feel guilty every time I eat something. When I look in the mirror, I think I'm huge. It never goes away. That
Mm-hmm.
part never goes away. I've had to learn how to manage it.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it just isn't so simple to just flip a switch like you're fine, like you look good. I've never been happy with the way I look,
Yeah.
ever, no matter what size.
It's interesting that you say that. There's so many things that pop into my mind. First of all, great for you that you are not engaging in any of the behaviors
Oh, no,
because they're
it's not
dangerous.
very.
They are dangerous.
Mm.
But you are saying exactly what I've always said about my own experience and about others as well. While there can be full recovery from the actual behaviors associated with this disorders, the emotional piece and the psychological piece sort of sticks with you forever. And that's exactly what you're
Yes.
describing, the feelings of not feeling good enough and sort of maybe in the back of your mind, always wondering, what if I just did this? Would I feel better? Would I look better? I've had that same struggle my entire life as well. So I appreciate your bravery in sharing because if we don't share and if we don't relate to others, then how can we all get better together? And I think that's really the goal is to really be supportive of each other. We're seeing so much criticism and so much judgment of others that if we're not relating to each other and trying to heal and make each other feel better, then it's a pretty lonely road.
Yeah, it really is. And I really don't know. I'm out of all the women and men, but mostly women. I really, there are very few that I ever talk to that are satisfied with the way they look. And
Yep,
it's shocking.
it is shocking. And I have some statistics tonight that we'll share with everybody that talk about that. And it is quite true that it almost seems like nobody is happy. Uh, and why? And we'll talk about the whys as well. But it's very interesting that, as I said, the behaviors can go away, but the thought process is there. And for those of us like you and I that have experience with eating disorders, the trick is to be friendly with food. Food is the trigger. How do you stay friendly with the trigger? So that's a challenge.
Exactly. Well, I have actually a guest in the green room that I would like to bring on. She's a regular contributor, friend, musician on V Talks, and I know that she has a lot to say on this topic. And she just popped on. So, you know, do you mind if I bring her on? I know it's
Sure,
just
of
kind of a
course.
last minute thing, but I just know that she has a lot to say. So I'm going to bring her on. Welcome to V Talks, Grace Morrison.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
I
Hi,
can.
Grace.
Mia,
Nice
this
to
is
meet
Grace.
you.
Nice to meet you as well.
It's a
Welcome.
pleasure. I am so relieved and almost in tears that you were talking about this tonight because
Oh,
eating disorders have taken over the lives of myself and my family for the past 2 years.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm sorry.
It's
You're not alone. You're not alone.
it's so hard, and I think and the thing that I keep thinking about is like, I've struggled my whole life with body image. And I've gotten permission to say this. My daughter has been struggling, and, we've gone through the ringer, and when my support didn't feel like it was helping, I thought to myself, if I am trying to get her to love herself as she is, why don't I start with me? Because I can't force her to feel a different way. And so that's been where where I've been, and it's hard.
It is hard. It is hard. And so we talk about body image. Let's make sure everybody knows what it even means, right? So body image is the thoughts, the feelings, the perceptions we have about our appearance and about our body. And negative body image is actually the most common factor in the development of eating disorders. So what does that tell us? If we're all sitting here saying, oh gosh, I don't feel good enough, I don't look good enough, this thing is wrong or that thing is wrong, where are we headed? And where are the people around us headed to? So where does body image come from? We know what it is. It's our thoughts, our feelings, our perceptions, but where does it come from? So there's a variety of factors that contribute to either positive or negative body image. And I'll list them, and let's do this. If we're all brave enough and if we're all interested, raise your hand when I name something and it applies to you. And I'll do the same.
Probably raise my hand for everyone. All right, let's go. It'll be a contest, Grace.
Okay. All right.
All right.
So let's do the first one. Self-esteem. I don't know if you can see my hand. There it is. I'll use this hand. Family values and attitudes about either appearance or success or perfection. Okay. See, we're not alone. We're not alone. Abuse or trauma, and those can all range from emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, or any kind of volatility in your past. There's my hand. And culture. So I believe we're all living in the same culture here, right? So culture is a big one. And the Western culture, of course, is very different from other cultures. And in the word culture includes things like the exposure to media, movies, TV, music. Music is the most misogynistic, degrading thing toward women and to men because they're behaving that way. So we're exposed to lots of things in our culture as well. So I don't think we can get away from that one, but we can certainly try to combat it. So you can see just by the show of our hands, just with that small list of factors that contribute to body image, that we're really up against a lot of things that can either create a positive body image or a negative one. So how can we change things? How can we feel better?
I have two thoughts when you mentioned about family values. So I can trace disliking my body back to being a little kid. And my grandmother and I would sit on her front porch because she was my daycare person. And she would say, Gracie, am I as fat as that person? As everybody walked down the street. And, so there was that piece. And then my whole life of my mom complaining about her body. And, I'm a grown woman. And just last week, my mom made a comment about her body. And I felt it in mine, because I'm like, but I look just like you, so what are you saying about me? And then I'd love to just put a pin in this. I'd love to talk about the current medical field and how it deals with this issue.
Right.
Yes.
Because you're going through that right now, Grace.
Yeah.
So, I would be interested in hearing what you're going through. because you've been busy and on tour. We haven't been able to.
Yeah.
She's been touring.
I
She's
can
been
speak to all
everywhere.
these things, like the musical
Yeah.
world, and got you.
Yes. Now you know why I brought her on. Plus, I missed her.
Perfect.
I know, I miss you too.
The only way I can see her is when she comes on Detox. Honestly,
Sure.
So it's like,
Perfect. Yes.
I know.
So,
right?
have you talked at all about atypical anorexia?
We have not. So what we did was we kept it just to anorexia, bulimia, and binge eating disorder, just to sort of corral the conversation and give a context to the audience. But if you'd like to share, you can.
Sure. So, our experience has been with atypical anorexia,
Mhm.
which is when someone's BMI is they're not technically underweight. And for us, this has added a new layer of problem because we went through 3 primary care physicians, all of which were really focused on BMI. And despite knowing how severe this issue was for my girl, we would hear things like, oh, you should just start running. Or, well, you're not that overweight. Or, you look really healthy. And they're just interesting things because I think most people wouldn't think of those as like emotional slaps. But that's how they feel to somebody who's struggling. You know, it completely undermines what they're experiencing. So the way that I've tried to personally help with this is when I go to the doctor, I just decline to be weighed because I'm there for a sore throat. I don't really see how my weight. Do you know what I mean? And in the midst of all of this, we couldn't even find a PCP who understood what's the health at every size.
Yes.
Haze. And so in the midst of all of it, it's just like finding someone who understands this, who is accepting patients. It's just, and then at the same time getting emails for weight loss surgery from the same medical group. So, you know, that's where we're coming from. It's just how does somebody, you know, combat this negative body image when you're getting this messaging even from your doctor?
Yes. And I've experienced some of that as well. So I've fired one of my primary care physicians for the very reason that you just mentioned about BMI, which is body mass index. And the primary care community as a generalization. Now, certainly there are outliers, but as a generalization, they're not trained in this area. So they're trained to look at the charts, height and weight. There you are. And that's how they calculate BMI. So if you have a certain height and weight correlation that creates a BMI that on their charts says you're not healthy, then they write it down and then you're not healthy. So I don't know how much I weighed at the time. This was probably 3 or 4 years ago. I looked exactly the same. I'm about 5'7". I fluctuate between 130 to 135. My primary exercise at the time and was for many years weightlifting. So I had a lot of muscle mass.
Right.
And
yeah.
I know what you're going to say. Exactly. So I sat there in the appointment with this brand new primary care physician, and she said, oh my goodness, what does your diet look like? Now, mind you, I have the cleanest diet on the planet because I eat an anti-cancer diet, and I do not eat sugar and dairy and beef. And I could go on and on and on about the things that I don't eat simply for health reasons. But I eat a ton of carbs and protein and fats, all the great stuff that you're supposed to eat. I said to my husband the other day, I think I eat as many calories as you do in a day. I eat a lot. I eat probably 5, maybe 6 times a day, every couple of hours. I eat, but I exercise. And when she asked me about diet, I thought, oh my gosh, I think I might get in trouble for screaming at this woman. So I said, I'm not here for that. Can we just continue? And she said, well, I'm a little concerned about your weight. That was it. I never saw her again. And I ended up complaining about her to the practice because I said, you know, if I were a vulnerable person, if I were a younger person who had no experience in this arena with knowledge about BMI or weight or diet or anything else, this could have been very detrimental to me as an experience, along with everything else that we're dealing with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And can
So
I
I'm
just pipe in?
hopeful.
And I want to pipe in too on Grace's comment. I have anxiety every time I have to go to the doctor and get weighed.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
Right? Like sometimes I'm like, oh, I've been eating a lot. Maybe I should make my appointment for a different time. I know that sounds awful, and I can't even believe I'm admitting this, but that's how much it affects me. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
And it shouldn't. It
No,
shouldn't. They should
we
be
need to go to the
educated.
doctor and make our, we don't need to feel this way, and they make the point, well, you gained 10 pounds. Yeah, thanks.
I keep going back to the whole concept of do no harm.
Yeah.
And the harm that has been done to my person in the hospital, in the emergency room, in the primary care office, because, like 2 weeks will go by after one passing comment from somebody, and it's just so hard to let go. And it boggles my mind that you have the deadliest mental illness and there's so little education. Like I've been trying to rally our local hospitals to just do a seminar. How about one seminar?
I know.
Yes.
I know.
Yes.
It's
And it should really start in schools as well in terms of health education.
yeah.
Part of the course that I teach at Bridgewater is a psychology of eating disorders class, which I created about 10 years ago for part of the very reason that we're talking about tonight. The psychology curriculum at a 4-year college everywhere does not include enough preparation in the areas of eating disorders. So what's happening is people are coming out with degrees and they're not prepared for that field. Should they be interested in it, and or will they maybe encounter a client or a patient in that area in some of the settings that they're working in? So I had said to the university, I think we need a course on eating disorders because people are coming out of here with no knowledge of it.
Yeah.
So luckily they said yes, and I've been teaching it. And I'll tell you, the students, the feedback that they provide in terms of this has been so helpful. Oh my gosh, I never learned about eating disorders like this. But one of the assignments I have them do is talk about their high school education in terms of health and physical fitness, and to analyze what it is they learned and what it is they should have learned now knowing what they know. And high school curricula, again, it's not helping our kids with body image. It's not helping them understand what the dangers are of, okay, yeah, I'll just skip a few meals. Then it becomes attractive. And then they want to do it more. And then there's other things happening, that the body image issues are happening. So it becomes a clinical disorder before you know it. So that education piece is missing. I think we need to do a lot within the medical field and the educational field, to your point, Grace.
And Grace, I don't know if you were able to catch the show a little earlier, but Mia was saying that anorexia can start as early as grade school. So
it's so scary. And then I was thinking too, we had a period of time where we felt like, oh my gosh, this is going to be imminently dangerous. And waiting lists for help were 6 to 8 weeks. And that was lucky that we are here in Massachusetts and that she's a female, because people sometimes forget that men can have eating disorders too, which I can also speak to because my husband also has an eating disorder, and it's even harder for a boy to get help.
Yes.
Because many of these places only take women.
Right. And in fact, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Disorders, which is sort of the Bible of mental disorders. In fact, the history of the DSM for short, did not include criteria for anorexia that would include boys. So for instance, the original criteria for anorexia had to be that your body weight and your BMI was so low that you couldn't menstruate. Well,
Right.
boys aren't going to qualify for that.
Mm-mm.
Before we even get started, they're just not even going to qualify for such a criteria. So boys were ignored for many, many, many years. The latter DSM revisions have now excluded that criteria because there have been more and more males that have experienced eating disorders. 20 million women and 10 million men will experience an eating disorder in their lifetime. So it's a 2-to-1 ratio. That says something. They're
Yeah.
getting bombarded with the same images that we're getting bombarded with. They might be of a different nature, but they're still being told every day in the clothing industry and in the media and on TV and in movies that they're not good enough either. Look at the evolution of G.I. Joe. When I was a little girl and my brother was playing with G.I. Joe, he was a skinny little guy. If you
Yeah.
buy a G.I. Joe toy today, he's this buff, muscular Hulk Hogan looking guy.
Sure.
What's that doing to our little boys?
Yeah. But even, women's bodies have transformed through the years, right? I mean, remember, in the 40s and the 50s, a voluptuous body was what everybody wanted. And then in the 70s, things started to change. So, what was desired back then is very different than what's desirable now. And
Right.
Grace, we were talking about social media, and now you have all the filters that you can literally transform yourself with a click of a button.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
What is that saying? We're just we're just never good enough.
No,
We're
and
never good enough.
and people, our culture tells us to casually say, "Oh, you lost weight, you look good."
Right. We've
As
had
this
this
passing
discussion.
thing. Like that's to me, that's the place I'm trying to start, is just to remind people that you don't know why somebody lost weight. There are myriad reasons why somebody would, or gained, or just,
Yeah.
it's easy to make a body comment. And I try to encourage people to find a different compliment. Like,
Yes.
you look really vibrant today, or anything. There's so many facets to a human that aren't that. And I think it's just held us back for such a long time. So I'm a singer-songwriter. And for the entirety of my career, I've had this thought in my head: oh, I'll take pictures when I've lost 10 pounds. I'll take pictures when I fit in that dress. And it has held me back for years.
I know.
Because what we really need is people in every different body type being represented to say, this is normal and okay.
And you're so
Right.
beautiful, Grace. I mean, it's how you feel about yourself, but I look at you and you're just a beautiful person. You're just beautiful. But it's what you feel.
Yeah. I mean, I remember sitting with now, and I don't have an eating disorder and it affects me this much, but like I remember as a kid looking at Gwen Stefani and her hip huggers and talking about how she got her abs and feeling like claustrophobic in my body, And it's just, and I think if I feel this awful and I don't have this issue, just imagine, I mean, it's a constant cycle of that in people's minds who struggle
Right.
with these issues.
Well, social media is the number one influence on body image for those under 18, and the number 3 influence on body image for those over 18. And you're right, it's the filters and it's everything else that people are exposed to. I often have said to people with children, please don't post filtered pictures of your children or teach them how to do it. What you're teaching them is their normal face is not good enough. It might be fun to use all of these filters and to put these funny things on people's faces, but what are we teaching them? We're teaching them they're not good enough, that you've got to be fixed.
Yeah. It's so hard. It's so hard
It
to be
is
a person if you don't have to think about this.
I know, right?
Have you talked about how eating disorders have kind of exploded over the past couple of years, with people being stuck on their phones during the pandemic? And
Yes.
Good point,
Yes.
Grace. That's a very good point.
It's a really great point. So we are normally exposed to over 3,000 advertisements and messages every day. in terms of social media, the TV, magazines, billboards we're driving by, commercials, whatever it might be. The average American typically spends maybe 2 years of their life looking at commercials. Well, the past couple of years, people have been stuck to their phones, stuck to their televisions, and away from social experiences. And now they're just staring at filters and negative messages. And the majority of the messages we're looking at center around harmful body images. Even the products that are being advertised now, there are products that have the word skinny in them. And what does that tell you?
I know.
So
I know.
I think the last couple of years have really been more detrimental to our mental health, and specifically in eating disorders, anxiety, depression. We've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I remember going to the doctor, it was right when things, the pandemic was, people were starting to come out a little bit more. And I, like everyone else, I, put on my pandemic, weight. And the first thing she said was, "Oh, don't worry about it. The average weight gain's 15 pounds, and it's just been everyone's, getting heavy and getting fat." And, she's telling me all this. And I didn't even want to get on the scale anyway, but I had to. But then she had all her comments, and I thought, gosh, I just felt so lousy when I left. I just felt lousy.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And
So
Anyway, all right.
I was one of the things I've noticed, because I've loved people close to me who struggle with addiction as well.
Yeah.
And there are so many parallels between eating disorders and, say, alcoholism, drug addiction. And I think there's a relatively new study that NEDA has. Did you already mention NEDA, the Eating Disorders Association?
That's coming. That's coming.
coming.
Wait, hold on. I think I have a banner. We'll just bring it
I'm
up
sorry.
now.
But
there
there's
you go.
new research showing
Thank
that
you,
eating
Grace.
disorders impact your brain in the same way that substance abuse does.
Okay.
And it's just for people to think about, like, alcohol, is hard when you're addicted to it because you see it everywhere, right? Like, there's package stores everywhere. But food, there is no escape from.
yes.
So that's all I had to say. It's just when I realized that, I was like, wow.
Yes. So similarly, I've had experience with loved ones who have had substance abuse and alcohol addictions. And I've always talked to them about the similarities and differences between myself and them in terms of my experience with eating disorders. And I've always said the difference is I have to eat the devil to stay alive. And that's pretty much what it means to a person who has an eating disorder. The food is the devil, unfortunately. And we have to somehow make peace with it to stay alive, but not have a dysfunctional relationship with it so that we don't die.
Okay. So Grace, do you want to stay on for
Yeah.
a little while? Because I
Yeah.
think Mia
I'll
has
stay on as long as you'll have me.
Oh, well, you can just stay on then. You're here, right? I just like to see your
here.
face.
Yeah,
And
likewise.
you're such an awesome contributor. So Mia has a game for us. She said.
Little exercise,
A
little
little
quick
exercise.
Now, for folks that are listening that might be driving, I don't recommend this, but you can follow along in your mind. I'd like people
right.
to, right? Just in case you're driving, just close your eyes for a couple of seconds and think about the perfect body. Just in your mind, think about the perfect body. What does that look like?
Do you want us to say a person, like say a celebrity, or do you want to?
Nope,
What do
just
you
think about it in your mind? And
Because
then
I have what it is in my mind, I think.
okay. So the question is, did you picture your own body?
Heck no. No way.
So I did,
You?
I pictured my body from when I was in my early 20s and still wasn't happy with it. But now I look at pictures of myself 10 years ago and I think, oh, it was perfect. What was my problem?
Right. And
Uh,
10 years from now, you're going to do the same thing. And that's really the idea here. Why aren't we picturing ourselves?
do you want to
Because,
know what I pictured?
yes.
Jennifer Aniston.
Oh, gosh.
Just, yeah. All right. I had
Jennifer
to share.
Aniston is vivacious and bubbly, and so are you.
The goal
That was what I
is-
decided. I want her body. That was what I decided. I did not pick myself.
What's interesting is that every time I've done this exercise with either my students or in person in terms of a presentation, people almost never pick themselves. And that's really the sad truth of how we feel. So why aren't we picking ourselves? Why are we picking other people or ourselves at another age that we were never happy with in the first place? I think we need to give ourselves permission to be confident and really to love ourselves. Why are we letting these images and these other factors control how we feel and how we think?
Okay. Become aware.
I have a thought about it
Okay.
because when you receive compliments, it's a bit addictive. You know, as an example, my person just before this all started kept getting comments that she was losing weight and that she looked good. And she said, hearing that made me want to hear that more. And so I think, when you talk about Jennifer Aniston, she's constantly praised for how gorgeous she is. So the mindset might be like, oh, well, if I just looked like that, I would get this positive feedback too. I'd love to know what you think.
What I think is there's a gazillion people, I don't know the number, but there's a gazillion people that are watching right now and thinking each of you are absolutely stunning and beautiful the way you are. And so there are people saying that about you. Of course, we're not in the limelight on these magazines, so people aren't talking about us in open circles, but people are saying that about you somewhere. And I think that's something to remember. So yes, maybe the famous people are getting it all the time because that's what people do. They talk about famous people, but people are saying that and thinking that about yourself. The most important part is that you believe it and think it yourself. So part of our action in terms of becoming what I call a body image warrior is in order to combat everything that's coming toward us in a negative way to try to make us feel bad. Now, we already heard about the factors that could potentially make us vulnerable to a negative body image. So those factors need to be addressed, of course, but then there's this other part that we're being bombarded with that we need to become aware of. And tonight is a perfect example. We start in conversations like this with real people, real information, and we talk about what it is that we are experiencing, what it is that we are seeing on a daily basis, that we can then say, I am not listening to that. I am not paying attention to that. So, for instance, in social media, what are you following on Instagram or Facebook? What are you following in terms of positive images or negative images? Do you have the wherewithal to look at something and say, oof, that didn't make me feel so good. Let's get rid of that. I'm not following that group or that person anymore. Only positive following. That's it. We've got to get rid of the negative images as much as we possibly can.
Do you think that there's value in trying to, even if you're forcing yourself, just practice complimenting yourself every day for anything? Just practice positive self-talk.
That's next.
Okay.
That is next. Grace, you're
Sorry.
perfect for this.
I know. I swear she sees my banners.
I didn't.
Self-talk. Go ahead.
Self-talk. What are we saying to ourselves?
She's in the midst of this right now. She's going through this and has been for a while. And I knew the show would resonate with her for
Oh,
sure.
there's tears right here.
I know,
No,
honey. I
no,
know. And
no.
thank you for coming on.
Oh,
Really.
Sure,
thank you
This
for
is great for
doing
you.
this.
Self-talk is so important, right? Everything we say, our brains are always listening to everything we say to ourselves and outside of ourselves. And also the people in our external world are listening to what we say. So when I was 18 years old, I was visiting my mother's campsite. My little sister was there. We are 14 years apart. So she was about 4, maybe 5 at that point. Maybe I was 19. And of course, I thought I was fat, and I wasn't. I probably weighed, like I said, I'm about 5'7". I probably weighed about 20 pounds less than I weigh now.
I
Super
know.
bony up here. Yeah, just not fat at all. But I said that I was fat out loud and to myself every day of my life back then. And I'm sure this poor little innocent girl heard me. So we were at the campsite. I was in my bathing suit, and she looked up at me and she said, "Your legs are big."
Oh,
Now, at 4, an almost 20-year-old is bigger,
but
but
she
that doesn't
probably
mean
meant
fat.
big, tall, right? But that's not what you
Exactly.
heard.
Exactly. And in my distorted mind, I thought, oh my gosh. And that comment stayed with me. Now, her and I joke about it today, of course, because it was just a little girl talking about an adult who was so much bigger than her. But again, did she hear me back then say all those negative things about myself? I wish I hadn't done that. So they're listening, we're listening, our brain is always listening.
Right.
And just like Veronica talks to Taylor Wells about every month, law of attraction, what we say becomes stronger and more present in our life. What are we attracting? If we keep saying, I'm unattractive, I'm ugly, I'm fat, I'm this, I'm that, I'm that, that's what we're going to feel and that's what we're going to be. We have to
But,
change the self-talk.
and that is this.
Well,
What?
instead of
What?
picturing somebody else's body, why aren't we picturing our own body?
Mhm.
It sounds corny, but take a picture, talk to yourself in the mirror, stare at yourself, tell yourself you're beautiful, and start picturing your own body as the perfect body. Now, people will say to me when I say this, but I'm not where I want to be. I want to be whatever the adjective is, healthier, thinner, more muscular, more toned, whatever it is, stronger. That's okay. You're still perfect in this moment. Even if you're trying to strive to be healthier at whatever adjective you are thinking about, that is okay. You're still perfect in this exact moment. Like you said, if you keep waiting, I'm not going to take the picture until I've lost weight. I'm not going to do that. You're just saying, I'm not good enough right now. But then 6 months ago, you're going to keep saying the same thing. If you don't change the script, you'll keep saying and feeling the same thing.
Because we need to live in the here and now.
Yeah.
And I think we keep, our brains are preventing that sometimes, and our emotions, we're always like, okay, I will do it eventually, or okay, we're going to do it eventually after this, but look at all the time we're wasting and not living now and not accepting ourselves now at every size.
Exactly. Exactly. Imagine if we all looked exactly the same. It
Yeah,
would be a
right.
very boring world. It would
Yeah,
be a very boring world.
I know. I know. It's so true. So, Mia, you have a lot of resources for our viewers if they suspect that they or someone that they love or know has an eating disorder. So, let me find them.
And I
We
feel like
just
Grace is
talked
going to
about
know all about these.
one. So, that was one, right?
I would just like to say about Nita that in our times of need, I've gotten instant responses.
Yes.
Okay.
Just we've had moments where, you're trying to like will your person into eating the meal or whatever. And I found myself reacting in a way I didn't like. And I just texted Nita. Right on their website, there's a chat feature, and they are right there to just
And
let you know you're not alone.
so you can chat with them
Yeah.
directly. Can you call them as well?
Yeah.
Is there somebody? And
Yeah.
you said it's incredibly helpful.
Yes. Just in those moments, just having somebody say, I understand, you're not crazy. It makes a big difference.
Wow, that's terrific. And then also we have this.
Yes, the
Are you
RENFREW Center.
familiar? Can you tell me about this resource?
Yes, so the RENFREW Center is a national organization, and they have both residential and outpatient treatment centers all over the country. They
Okay.
actually do have something in Massachusetts as well. Now, of course, insurance, as Grace probably can tell you, insurance is always an issue, but they do work with clients to make sure they're covered if they absolutely need it.
Okay. All right. And then also we have this one.
Meta, yes. So the Multi-Service Eating Disorder Association, that is located in Newton, Massachusetts. They're also a great resource. They've got groups that you can attend. They've also got a repository of professionals that are local, which is, as we mentioned earlier, very hard to find. So they are a great resource for both parents, friends, and actual people that are experiencing eating disorders as well. So,
Okay. Yeah, I feel like we have only scratched the surface on this topic. We try to keep the show to an hour. Grace, Dr. Holland is going to be with us once a month. And right. So I expect some feedback from you, and I want you to help guide me here as to how we should move forward as we cover these topics. Because
Yeah.
I think you have a lot of experience in this arena too.
It's so helpful to have you here. This is huge. I think there's so much shame and stigma and worry around this subject. And I think as a parent, you might see the signs and then get yourself maybe not believing them so thank you. I think this is going to be huge for our community.
sure.
And the world
You're
at
very
large.
welcome.
Hey,
You're very welcome.
Grace, what
I
are you
would
doing?
say,
Go ahead.
go ahead. I was going to say, for parents, one takeaway for parents, if you're going to take anything away from this talk tonight, listen to your children. Pay attention to what they're saying about their bodies. Pay attention to what they're feeling, and pay attention to what you're saying about your own body around your children.
Sure. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hey, Grace, what are you doing next Tuesday?
What are you doing next Tuesday?
I got a cancellation and I could use a singer.
Let's chat.
All right, let's chat.
Perfect.
It's a 5-week month. I didn't realize that.
Oh.
And I was like, oh.
I got you, girl.
I know. And I want to hear all about your touring. So
Okay, you got it.
all right, cool. All right. See how easy this works out. All right, guys. Grace, thank you for popping on. Really,
Thank you.
so much appreciate you. Dr. Holland, I'm grateful that you are on our panel now. You're going to help a lot of people. And yeah. So
Yes.
thanks, guys.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Grace, for coming in too. This is great.
Of course. Body image warrior. I'm going to use that.
Right?
Yes.
We need t-shirts,
Yes.
and we need a song. I almost had you sing a song tonight. Too.
Oh, I got songs.
I know. You got so many songs. All right.
I've heard all about your wonderful songs. I would love to hear them.
She's
Absolutely.
brilliant. Her voice is flawless. So when you watch next week, now she's on the show. So there we go. We're going to have a concert. All right. I'm going to pull you guys out of the StreamYard now. All right. Bye, honey.
Thank
Bye, Grace.
Good night. Bye-bye.
All right. Isn't she terrific?
Awesome. Perfect. Perfect guest.
I know. I thought you would enjoy chatting with her, and I knew she'd have a lot to contribute,
Yes.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. This is jam-packed. We should do to be continued.
To be continued. We have a lot to discuss, but I think it was just we scratched the surface, and then we can dig a little deeper next month.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. You're the best.
No, you're the best. All right.
You're the
You
best.
have right. You have a wonderful evening.
You too. Thank you.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into V Talks. And I'm so happy that we've been able to add Dr. Holland to our panel of experts. And I look forward to our show next week. Now we have Grace Morrison. She's going to be singing some tunes and updating us on her recent concert tour. She just got back a couple of days ago. I don't even know all the places that she's been. So we're going to all learn that together next week and catch up with her. Hope you all have a wonderful evening, and thanks for tuning in. Bye.